Hello again, rail fans. A question that I've been getting frequently recently, for some reason, is about railroad grade crossing signals, automatic signal activations. How do they work? How does the signal know when the train is there? How does it know when the train is gone? Well, I'm going to give you the simple answer to this because, frankly, it's the only one I got. A long time ago, railroad engineers discovered that they already had the means for automatic activation of those devices in those two steel rails. They realized that if they put an electric current up one of the rails and then sent it back down the other rail, that they had the means for the automatic activation right there. When the train came along with its steel wheels and axle and bridged those two rails, bridging that current, it created a switch that could activate a device. And so the automatic grade crossing device was born. It was probably, I don't know this for sure, but it was probably Thomas Edison and or George Westinghouse that had a hand in that. They were the Bill Gates and Elon Musks of their day. Now those were the early versions, the very simple versions. In the decades and decades since then, the devices have gotten much more sophisticated. But let's start with those simple devices.
One of the oldest and most basic type of crossing signal activation still in use is the approach island system. Here at the County Line Spur near Lakeland, Florida, this local is crossing U.S. Highway 92. He was already on the crossing when I got there, but you can still see how this works. It's a conventional track circuit system of the most basic design. It doesn't even have approach circuits because it really doesn't need them. Trains always back into this spur because it's a dead end down there, so they're always going 10 miles an hour or less. Not much approach time needed. The train simply pulls up to the crossing and stops while the signals activate. When the gates go down, they move on across. Folks often speculate that it's some kind of weight sensor or seismic detector that triggers the signals, but it's far simpler than that. The steel wheels and axle actually bridge the rails and complete an electric circuit. In this example, that insulated joiner bar with the white paint actually begins the island circuit of the crossing. When the first set of wheels hit that, the signals activate. The island circuit is that stretch of rail which goes across the roadway. It's called that because the approach circuits extend way out from the crossing on either side, and the island circuit is in the middle, hence the name. Across the road, another insulated joint ends the circuit. Watch as the front wheel of the locomotive clears the electric contacts on the far side. Almost the instant he gets off that small island circuit, the gates come up and the lights go off. Again, this is a conventional track circuit and is the oldest and most basic type of crossing activation system. Much newer technology includes the motion detector. At Hawthorne, Florida, on CSX's S line, the Johnson Street crossing is a motion detector system. When the train passes into the detector circuit, the wheels shunt the two rails and begin changing the impedance of a coded circuit in the track. The electronics in the signal box trigger the crossing lights and bells. As the train gets closer, the impedance keeps changing, letting the software in the signal box know that the train is coming toward the crossing and to keep flashing and ringing. If Q453 were to stop before the crossing, the motion detector would sense that the track impedance stopped changing, and after a number of seconds, it would turn off the signals. The Federal Highway Administration recommends a 20-second lead time for signals to activate before the train arrives, but it's common practice to set crossing circuits at 30 seconds. This particular installation is set for 45-mile-an-hour trains, track speed through here, but 453 isn't running more than about 25, so the lights activated 56 seconds in advance of the train. But Johnson Street is clearly not a busy crossing, so no problem. An improvement to the motion detector is the Speed Predictor. This is firmware that takes the motion detector information and uses it to calculate the speed of the approaching train.
This is XTQ 45314, locomotive 267,007, clear Ocala, track number 27.
With this system, the speed of the train doesn't matter. The predictor begins figuring that speed versus the length of the circuit and produces a trigger time that's roughly 30 seconds to the crossing. At Magnolia Street in Ocala, Q453 activated the crossing signals and hit the pavement 32 seconds later. Next, we'll look at the motion detector and how it keeps highway traffic moving. The advantage of the motion detector system is illustrated in this shot I caught in Rebecca, Georgia. The northbound freight is in the siding waiting for an approaching southbound. He's pulled up just short of the highway crossing. In a few seconds, the motion detector senses he's not moving and deactivates the crossing signals. This saves a lot of anger from drivers trying to get across. At Deerfield Beach, Florida, on the ex-Seaboard Main Line into Miami, is an excellent example of the Speed Predictor and motion detector at work. The Deerfield station is right next to a big crossing. Hillsborough Boulevard is 6 lanes in each direction, lots of traffic. Crossing signal connections to the track are well marked with that orange paint, so we can see where they are. As we look way down south, we see a clear signal on the number 1 track at Parker Crossover. There's a southbound somewhere in the block. At 8:37 a.m., Tri-Rail arrives, triggering the signals 1 minute before it hits the crossing. The 4 quadrant gates are fully lowered 32 seconds before he's on the crossing. Tri-Rail is commuter service between the Miami Airport and Mangonia Park in West Palm Beach. Now watch as he clears the roadway. Less than 4 seconds off the island circuit, and the gates start coming up. Even though he's clearly still on the southern approach circuit, the signals don't care because this side was disengaged when the train hit the northern approach circuit first. It works the same for trains going either way. At 09:06, Amtrak 98 appears from the south. He originates at Hialeah Yard in Miami and runs to New York City. He's rolling down into his 3rd stop on that journey, Deerfield Beach. In a move that's been measured and perfected, the Silver Meteor glides down to a stop just before he gets on the Hillsborough Boulevard crossing circuit. They rely on the motion detector to go to work here. When Amtrak 98 stops rolling, the impedance of the coded signal in the rails stop changing. The motion detector is set up to process this, and after a number of seconds, it begins shutting off the crossing signals, so drivers won't become irate while the train is standing in the station. South Florida is a busy territory, and blocking a roadway like Hillsborough Boulevard for even 5 minutes can cause big problems. It takes a few minutes on this Sunday morning to get everybody on board, but when the engineer gets the depart order from the conductor, he uses his DTMF keypad to transmit a set of tones on the radio that reactivates the crossing lights. This avoids the need of having to play chicken with the automatic crossing system by rolling up slowly on the highway hoping for an activation. It doesn't always work soon enough when a train is this close. Today, 98 has a GE-8 locomotive dead in tow, one of the few that Amtrak still owns. I thought it was brought to Hialeah for servicing from somewhere up north, but I'm only guessing at that. All this algebra and decision-making happens in the little silver houses you see next to crossings. Commonly called signal bungalows, these structures hold all the electronics that control each crossing. They even house backup batteries to keep the signals working through a power failure. Traditionally, these batteries lived outside in concrete boxes next to the bungalows back when they were older lead-acid type. It's all in one house now. At Gay Road in Lakeland, there are no crossing signals. In fact, the crossing was closed a few years ago. But I'm here on this bright day before St. Patrick's Day 2021 because Q453 is showing off some special power. The 3194 is CSX's Spirit of Law Enforcement engine. The ES44AH honors police, fire, and EMTs in a blazing blue, black, and white design. At mid-train, actually toward the bottom end, was a distributed power unit, another CSX Spirit locomotive. The 911 is also an ES44AH and also honors first responders, but with a decidedly more firefighter design. Today's 453 has the usual miscellaneous traffic on top and auto racks on the bottom. 453 is on track number 1. The southbound number 2 track signal has gone to approach. Proceed, prepared to stop at the next signal ahead. That's for 0710, a local moving down to work customers at Plant City. He's getting the approach signal because 453 is on the crossover switch and the siding switch at Winston Pass, which is the next signal ahead. 0710 will pull to the south end and tuck in there until Q453 clears up, which will be quite a few minutes this morning. He's making a move called pulling by and backing in. That means just what it says, pulling past the entire Winston Y plant, then backing his entire train, 9,600 feet of it, around the south leg of the Y and into Winston Yard. I move around to the stem of the Winston Y where 453 will be coming in. Old Tampa Highway is listed as a conventional crossing circuit with an approach island approach setup.
Come around this curve now, we got to restrict. I think it's simple.
The signals activate 52 seconds before he arrives at the crossing because this kind of setup doesn't know how fast he's moving. It simply turns on when he covers the approach circuit and stays on until he's clear of the island circuit. That's the rails in the crossing and a few feet out either side.
All right, 30 more, 30.
At this point, he's stopping because the conductor way down on the bottom of this 9,600-foot train has to line a yard switch before they shove all the way in. Takes about a minute and a half. While 453 is stopped on the crossing, the signals stay activated. As long as he's on that island circuit in the roadway, the lights will flash and the gates will stay down. Those white chalk drawings on cars aren't graffiti, it's message art, usually from car inspectors to one another in different terminals. My dear departed friend Crick Hatch in Folkestone, Georgia, first told me about this messaging. He had hundreds of photos of this stuff. Apparently the practice is still alive and well. This is not message art, it's tagger graffiti. Much less talent involved here. 453 gets rolling again, and we get one more look at that lead engine. When he clears the pavement, that conventional crossing circuit doesn't give me much time to skedaddle. Almost the second he's off the island circuit, the gates start coming up, and those drivers aren't waiting for me.
Well, that's the simplified version of how railroad grade crossing signals are activated. I hope that answered some of your questions. There's much more detail to how these things work. It involves microprocessors and special sensors and positive train control. But those that we did here today are kind of the basics. Please hit the like button if you like this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done that. Hit the bell down there to be notified when I do post a new video. Write your comments in the comments section below. I try to read all those and I reply to as many as I can. Same with the email. Email me at railfandanny@gmail.com. I read every one of those and reply to as many of those as I can. So, let's plan to meet up again somewhere soon, somewhere out there on the high iron. And until we do, this is Danny Harmon, out.